there, this is Jennifer Vanderbeek from scrapsoflife.com and welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing another set of cards from a Simon Says stamp kit, this time the Blissful kit, and I am not making 8 cards, I am not making 10 cards, I am making a whopping 13 cards from this one kit, and now I'm going to show you how I did it. First things first, what's in the kit? There's, of course, an awesome stamp set, some inks, some pattern papers, this Daniel Smith watercolor, a very pretty envelope, and some cardstock and watercolor paper. Now, in the past, what I've done what other YouTube card makers have done, and I have taken the cardstock that's in the kit and trimmed it down into card bases. So if there's 3 sheets, you can get 6 cards. If there's 4 sheets, you can get 8. If there's 5 sheets, you can get 10. I didn't do that this time. Instead, I'm going to use some card bases made out of supplies I already had, and I'm going to divide the 3 sheets of cardstock, which are black, cotton candy, and ivory in this kit, and I'm going to divide them up into quarters, and so I can get 12 card fronts. And I'm actually, like I said, I'm doing 13 cards because I've got one that isn't using one of those card fronts, but we'll get to that in a minute. Now, the piece of Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock, I thought, well, okay, I've got watercolors, I've got watercolor cardstock, obviously I'm going to watercolor. Now, the Barely Beige Simon Says stamp ink is perfect for no line watercolor. It's a great technique, and yeah, I mean, you can barely see it on the video, but it was dark enough to where I could follow the lines as I was going to paint. I filled up the sheet of cardstock as much as possible with the large and small motifs, and now I'm going to get painting, and I'm doing this all in one go because while I certainly could paint as I go or decorate as I go, I think that by taking the time to go ahead and fill up the sheet of paper, paint everything, and then cut it all out, because I'm going to fussy cut every single one of these images, that while this part alone took, well, it took 2 episodes of Rizzolian Isles while I was binging. I was binging while painting. So yeah, so what, an hour and a half plus another half hour or so to cut them all out. So okay, so this part takes 2 hours, which I'm only going to paint this first cluster image and then a couple of the extra flowers, and then I'll do the rest off screen. But yeah, I mean, it was time well spent because I'm going to use these to make 6 cards. So if you divide that by, if you divide the 2 hours by 6, then that's only 20 minutes of painting per card, painting and cutting. So really, it's not that bad. And this was so enjoyable. I loved these Daniel Smith watercolors. Let's see. Did they tell me which colors came in the kit? Yes. Sap green, ultramarine blue, quinacridone gold, and quinacridone rose. I used up the rose, but I still have little bits of the green, gold, and blue after painting this entire sheet. I love the way they blended. I loved that, and one of the other things I loved, was kind of a nice little surprise, was you see the veining in the leaves? That's there because the Barely Beige, the stamping ink, kind of shows through the watercolor a little bit. And it was like, oh wow, this is really cool. I also used some of the Tim Holtz Distressed Oxide to paint some of the smaller flowers. I'm going to end up using those on a separate card, and yeah, and those painted really well too. I was really happy, and I'm going to play with the Distressed Oxide later on some of the other cards. Now, as you can see, I got a lot of color variation from those 4 dots of watercolor. That blue set is probably my favorite, although, well, okay, no, I don't know if the blue set of flowers is or not, because the pink and brownish green that I've got right there, yeah, I've got some plans for that card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these first 6 cards out of the watercolored elements that I've just finished painting and cutting out. And I'm kind of batching this up because I want to get the most out of my time and materials. So I've picked some of my card bases that I cut out of the enclosed cardstock. I'm matching up the flowers that I've colored and cut out with the different colored backgrounds and some of the sentiment stamps that are in the kit, kind of just getting a nice variety. This is definitely a wedding or special occasion themed kit. It's definitely leaning that way, but of course you could, the stamps are universal. The flowers just, I mean, they'd go for gosh, anything. And because of the black cardstock and some of the other graphic elements in the pattern paper, you can get some really interesting combinations. A lot of the stamping I did for these cards was just very simple. Just stamp the sentiment with some tuxedo ink or tuxedo black memento ink and put some foam adhesive. These are Helmar Zap Dots on the back of my fussy cut images. And, layer a piece of pattern paper if I wanted over the card base, and this first card is done. And that multicolored floral arrangement just, for being the first one I printed, I was still really happy with it. Again, here's another one of those graphic things. The blues didn't really kind of go with the overall theme of the card set, but this just goes to show that just because there's no blue in the rest of the supplies doesn't mean that you can't make it work with what's there. The blue paint doesn't have to go to waste, and you have a little bit more to play with. Now this is just a simple congratulations card with a little sideways floral bouquet. I suppose in hindsight I could have done some more leaves. I probably could have fit some more leaves on the page before I finished painting and cutting everything out, but at that time I was kind of done. I did some embossing, especially on the darker backgrounds. I'm using the Versamark Dazzle pad. This is champagne, and it just happened to be the first Versamark pad I grabbed. So for the white, it doesn't really matter, but later on I'm going to use it for another card with the clear embossing powder, and the little bit of sparkle that comes through it is really, really nice. Now in this card, I had a little bit of a boo-boo. You see, I'm like planning where my flowers are going to go, and I'm starting to stick them down. And one of those little rosebuds landed glue side down on the edge of the card. Not where I'd intended it to go. And on the black cardstock, that was going to show unless I trimmed more off or did something. I said, you know what? I'm going to make that not a flaw, but a feature. And so that happened to be like one of my husband's favorite cards when I was showing these to him later. So, you have a little accident, make it work. Here's another very striking card with the yellow flowers that I painted from the kit, and that black and white stripe. It almost looks like penitentiary. But once the flowers are on there, then it kind of looks a little bit more like avant-garde. And again, with the simple sentiment, just celebrate, this could totally be for anything. Actually, come to think of it, my mother's birthday's coming up, and she loves yellow roses, so I think this card might end up being her birthday card. Yep. It's already done. Okay, so this card, I had so much fun. This is the one where I told you that I'm going to do some clear embossing in the back, just because I didn't want anything to detract from the blue and green floral arrangement there. I kind of had like a toile image in mind as I was painting it. And, yeah, I was really happy with it. Now, what I wasn't happy with was how the stamped sentiment looked once I stamped over the embossing. I should have known that that was not going to work. So instead, I'm going to put some ribbon over the stamp part that I didn't like. Thankfully, it was just the right width. And I am going to restamp my sentiment onto some spare cardstock. and, just make it into an oval with my corner rounder. I thought I was very clever for that. Now, the first one I did, actually, I smudged the ink, so I ended up redoing it. But either way, it works. And this is just like that something blue for a wedding. I loved it. Now, okay. So when I was looking at the stamps to begin with, I thought of this particular card that I'm going to create now, and it's one of those sit-up cards. Is there a name for it? I don't know, but I went ahead and I prepared a card base. This is where the 13th one came in handy, because I prepared a card base that was, folded kind of interestingly to allow it to sit up, like I just showed right there. And so I covered the card front with some of the pattern paper, which I also then second generation stamped in the Distress Oxide ink. Let's see, this is Worn Lipstick. And just kind of, made it a little bit pretty. And not that the paper wasn't pretty enough. And then I decided that I needed a little something extra, so I used some cast-offs from the pattern paper, the opposite side. And you see, I even used the piece that had the hole through it. And it didn't matter, because the ribbon that I had behind the popped up watercolor piece, it hit it. So, you know what? No such thing as an unusable scrap. Now, for the next card, I wanted to try out, I'd heard that the Distress Oxide inks worked fabulously on dark paper because of the, I guess it's the zinc oxide or whatever, the white pigment in the paper, in the stamp pad. So I had to try that out, and I really loved the look. I added some Irresistible in wedding dress white. How appropriate, to do some splatters. And then for the next card, I love simple cards, because just because they're quick and easy doesn't mean that they are boring. And I thought by offsetting a pair of the floral motifs and putting it on the striking black background, that this would really be a pretty basic card, but very pretty. And I don't mean that pretty basic, but I mean pretty, basic. It's important. I did a little bit of masking, kind of played around. It's like, okay, which flower do I want on top? Which ones do I want in the background? I'm still not sure which one is better, but they both work. And I kept the sentiment down in the corner, because I thought, you know what? I could tie something to the front when it was time to actually give the card, or I could not, and it's still kind of an interesting card. Now this one, I think I lost my mind on this one. It's not that it was a bad idea. It was just that, really? Did I want to do it this way? So the same placement, and I use that Barely Beige ink, and then I'm going to not completely cut out the stamped image. This isn't like a die cut, but I'm going to cut it out enough to create basically a slit, and I'm going to put the patterned paper tucked behind this stamped and cut image. I don't know. I'm still not 100% sure on this card. This is kind of one of those. This was one of the few cards in this set that I made that I was like, does it need something else? It may. I don't know. I did take, earlier when I made the little stand-up card, I had separated the Forever and Always into Forever as one stamp and Always as the other. So I'm using the Forever to stamp around the edge of the card, and then I'm going to go back with that little, the little dot, little circle, and put it in between there, kind of like a wedding ring, or I don't know. Make of it what you will. Okay, so we are almost finished. I have 4 more cards to show you, and these were very quick, very simple, but still very cute, I think, cards. So I have 4 card bases left. I picked out 4 of the pattern papers that I had not used yet that I thought would look good with each, and I thought I was going to use this strip of the wedding card, but I ended up not. Anyway, so I got everything trimmed, and then what I decided to do, after deciding which sentiments were going to go on which card, I ended up die cutting ovals and pennants and banners and whatnot, and then did some very basic stamping. Again, just simple black on white. Now, I did dress it up a little bit. I used the little circle to mimic the pattern paper design on the thank you flag, and I'm going to add some twine to the bunting and do some inking around the edges, so I am gonna, and I'm gonna add some more ribbon to the celebrate card. But all in all, I kept these nice and quick and easy, but I don't feel like they were cheats or anything like that. I really do think that overall the cards, I don't think anybody would be upset to get a card made in this fashion. And you know what? Now I have, again, 13 more cards in my stash ready to go whenever the need arises. And of course, it's June right now, so I don't know if you're getting invited to weddings, but if you are, or if you've like friends with anniversaries coming up, or nobody says that that weddings have to happen in the summer. This way you're ahead of the game. In fact, I know a friend of mine's getting married soon, so she'll probably be getting one of these cards in the mail herself. Yeah, that pink twine, I just thought that was a cute addition. Kind of breaks up a little bit of the pattern paper. And there you have it, 13 cards created from one Simon Says Stamp monthly card kit. I still have some pattern paper and a little bit of the watercolors and the envelope left over. Didn't even use it all. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you got some ideas on how to make a bunch of cards quickly and easily, but still very creatively, and had fun. I hope you'll give it a try. If you do, let me know. I want to see them. And thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up or a like, share it with your friends, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.